Because the most dangerous thing to be in the world today is an independent thinker. That could be true, that could be false, who knows? What I do know as an absolute fact is that you're punished for thinking outside the box. You know, we have a podcast now, right now, episode 1.
Being the first one, I think we should get into what the show is, right? Where you can actually see the retention rate. It's universal. You see the first 2 to 3 seconds, and then it just plummets.
And it feels like we're all just kind of being indoctrinated.
I think that's what 75 Hard did for me when I completed it. Alone, suffering every single day because no one's doing it with you. And it's a crash course on how are you going to behave? What are you going to do the next time you go through limbo?
What's one belief that you had 5 years ago that you believed to be true that you no longer believe today?
I honestly, truly thought that the moment that you achieved something,
welcome to The It Show, where leaders rise, where the bold challenge everything and big ideas take flight. Because the most dangerous thing to be in the world today is an independent thinker. My name is William Butler. I'm your host, and today I have my co-host with me, as always, Edelio Sanchez.
Hey guys, how's it going?
It's going great. It's going great.
Episode 1, dude. This is exciting. This is super exciting. I'm humbled to be here with you, and really, I don't know. I feel like we're gonna get into some really dynamic, interesting things. Obviously, episode 1 being the first one, I think we should get into essentially what the show is. Right? You want to tell everybody what the show is going to be about?
Absolutely. Well, it's called The It Show because it's for independent thinkers. And I think that we live in a world today where the ability to think for yourselves has almost been removed. Like, for the last few years, you were punished for thinking independently. And I feel like the world as a whole, and specifically maybe even just America, I haven't really been around the world, I don't know how they view things, but in America, it's almost like they wanted to neuter us so that they can control us. That could be true, that could be false, who knows? But what I do know as an absolute fact is that you're punished for thinking outside the box. And there has been almost a rise in the last couple of years where people finally said, I've had enough of this. And I want to think for myself. I don't want to be a puppet. I don't want to be a tool. I want to be somebody who thinks for myself and can shape my own destiny. And that's what I believe opened up the avenue for us to then create a show like this to make changes and impact the world.
Yeah, I think there's a resonance with that line of thinking that it's underrated. Like the amount of people that I know personally that go through this arc, this kind of evolution, where they try and find a community, right? They try and find a community because that's what we all do. And then the moment that you find a community that you start resonating with, you could be unlucky enough to end up in a community where there's a line of thinking. There's a way that they like to express things or behave. And then little by little, you might start editing and auditing things that you know to be true about yourself, about your upbringing, about who you are, your experiences. And you start pushing some of those things aside just so you could fit in that kind of either culture or environment or in that tribe, right? And too many people that I know have gone through this very similar arc where they give up on a lot of things that they believe in so they can fit in. And then at a certain point, they realize like, oh, there's nothing in there that's going to fulfill whatever void I'm trying to like fill. All that only gets filled by myself, by my own trials and tribulations, the things that I'm putting in front of me, either intentionally or unintentionally, the challenges that I'm getting over, and understanding myself better, understanding what my capabilities are. And they come out of there with this understanding, this life experience. And now they kind of want to share it with everybody because they're like, oh, dude, now I see myself in you. I see you going through something I already went through. Let me try and help you out. Sadly, you can't help everybody, but you can try, and most people do. So I really do think there's a lot of people that can resonate with this.
No, for sure. So tell me about, like, is there any specific times? I know I have one, but any specific times in your life that you can recall that absolutely fits the bill, where you realized maybe while you were doing it, or maybe afterwards when you started looking back at things, where you thought maybe I wasn't operating as who I truly was or what I truly believed because I was just trying to fit the mold. Is there a specific moment in your life where that kind of just pops in your head when we talk about independent thinking and breaking the mold?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a couple. I think there's kind of a repetitive nature to this, in the sense that it's almost like a rhythm. If you remember last conversation we had about outwitting the devil, there's this hypnotic rhythm that the author talks about that I think kind of does get reflected on people's evolutions. Like you see this rhythm playing out where you go through an entire arc of believing someone else's truth, trying to dissuade your own truth, and then going through that journey with them, and then getting to a place where you realize that journey is not mine. It's not really giving me what I was looking for. So then you kind of leave that path and go find another one. And typically, you almost always go right back to the beginning, right? Like you almost always go back to who you used to be before you took that path. And most people start realizing that, I think after a couple cycles, a couple rinse cycles,
Sure.
so to speak. The one that sticks out the most for me is definitely like when I was younger, when I was in high school. I really just wanted to feel accepted, and I wanted to be seen. That's what most kids want. They just kind of want to feel seen, especially if you're not feeling seen at home, right? Like if you're at home and you don't really feel like you can either fully connect with your parents, if you're lucky to have them both, or if you don't really feel understood or accepted in a way, I think you're naturally going to try and find that acceptance and that understanding somewhere else. And for me, it was the pop punk emo scene. I went through this whole emo phase where I was just listening to all these bands and rock and punk and everything that comes with that lifestyle is also very hedonistic, right? Like you're very into the pleasures of life and feeling good and not really struggling much, right? Like the struggle's already constantly in your head. So now you're trying to live your life through, let's go to the concert and have a good time. Let's take this substance and have a good time. Let's hang out and, fuck the parents or whatever and have a good time. And that kind of path, the deeper you go down that path, the more you start getting away from, I personally think, who I actually was at the beginning, which was someone who just kind of wanted to feel seen, wanted to feel understood, and I wanted to have a little bit of fun at the same time. Every single one of those paths, the longer you stay on that path, I think the more you start realizing like, oh, that person that I used to be is no longer in sight. I have become, or allowed myself to become, something completely different. Like maybe at the beginning, I didn't believe that certain substances were okay to indulge in. Now, lo and behold, I'm trying shit I've never tried.
Yeah.
Right? But it's gradual. It's that hypnotic rhythm, and it gets you down that path. So for me, it was definitely that emo phase. And then once you get out of that and you get back to the beginning of who you used to be, now I can actually look down the path, like down the barrel of the gun of emo, and be very, I feel very nostalgic about that almost. Like every time I listen to those songs again, whenever I'm working out or doing something, because that's the emotion that it gives me, I feel a very good feeling in terms of the positive memories that I had going down that path. But stayed long enough in there, all those negative memories start coming down to.
Oh man, that's good. It reminds me. You mentioned hedonism, or hedonism, like a hedonistic philosophy on life, which, for those who don't know, it's basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, it basically just means pursuing like instant gratifications, and kind of
physical pleasures. Yeah,
physical pleasures.
Mm-hmm.
That's another rabbit hole that we can go down altogether, because I think part of how independent thinking has also been removed is through this culture that was created of hedonism, like play video games. I don't know if that falls into it, but in my mind, it's like distraction, 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 dopamine, dopamine, dopamine. Anything to pull you away from what's actually most important, which Napoleon Hill talks about, this law of hypnotic rhythm that you were just talking about. Is this, should we go down the rabbit hole of explaining how hypnotic rhythm came about?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So I guess we'll start by, this was a book called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill, the same guy who wrote Think and Grow Rich, which most people are familiar with. But most people have never heard of this book, Outwitting the Devil. And the reason was this was a book that was written after Think and Grow Rich was written. And Think and Grow Rich was a book that took 25 years to write. 25 years. And interviewing the 500 most successful people in the world, and then broke it down to the 13 things that all 500 people had in common. And then put it all into a book, 25 years. And then he releases his book. It becomes a worldwide success. And then he goes through his monumental failures and then is living in his brother's spare bedroom and trying to figure out, how can I get back to where I was? And he had to kind of apply everything that he learned inside of this book to drag him out of that. And in doing so, he kind of developed this awareness where he interviews the devil. All right. Now, this is where you lose most people when you start talking about how he interviews the devil. But I think the beauty in that, whether you believe he had a conversation with the devil or not, there were a lot of what I consider universal truths that were revealed in that book and in that interview. One of them being hypnotic rhythm, where the devil reveals that he controls 96% of the population. And the methods that he uses to do that were all things that are being used today. And mind you, this book was written when was this book written? In the 30s?
Yeah, it's been quite a few decades since it came out.
So like 1930s, maybe 1940s, if that. And it wasn't released until 2011 because of how controversial it was. But one of the most important things about all of that is this concept of hypnotic rhythm and how the world is being controlled by it. I mean, do you see this happening today? Hypnotic rhythm?
It's the North Star for every single giant tech company, right? Like the most important thing for any sort of tech company right now is the currency of attention. If they can capture your attention, then they can sell you anything. They can do anything they want
keep
with you.
it
And keep
for
it.
hours and hours.
And there's a bit of a training which can be likened to a rhythm, because a rhythm is literally just something that repeats. And then that rhythm can speed up or it can slow down. That's just the way rhythm works. And if you can keep rhythm, you can really start realizing how the momentum that rhythm takes you down. And something that they're realizing, all these tech giants, is if you can keep that rhythm a little bit faster, like every single time that you're opening your apps, your Instagram, YouTube, whatever, if you can grab my attention for 3 seconds, 5 seconds, you got me, because now you've taught me that every 3-5 seconds, there's something else coming. So now I can swipe and get the next 3 to 5 second hit and get the next 3 to 5 second hit. And you could see that on everybody's feeds. Like if you've ever posted any sort of content ever, you can get a business or an analytics page, right? Like once you reach certain metrics where you can actually see the retention rate of who's watching. And it doesn't matter how good your content is. It really doesn't. It's universal. You see the first 2 to 3 seconds kind of keep most people's attention, and then it just plummets. And there's a sharp little curve, little hockey stick that almost every single content creator will see in some of their content. Some people kind of circumvent that by making their content really short and trying to keep that, that dip a little bit more relative to the time that the actual entire content was. But for the most part, it's the same thing. 3-4 seconds of attention maximum, and then it just drops.
It used to be 9 seconds.
It used to be a lot longer. Yes.
Isn't a goldfish's attention span is 9 seconds, right?
Mm-hmm. We're losing to a goldfish, brother, which it's saying a lot, because there's almost like a training going on, a training of reshaping your brain to expect and to behave a certain way. So now kids that are born today, and kids that have been born in the last couple of decades that grew up with this type of tech, they're starting to realize that the way that their brain synapse works is fundamentally different than millennials or Gen X or boomers, where they're a lot faster, right? Like their processing power is a lot higher, but it's almost been force fed into that realm. Like it's almost been forced into just being a lot faster, being a lot more repetitive, and finding their groove in that place. Whereas, I don't know if you remember when we were kids, we would look at the old guys and the old girls and we'd be like, you're too slow. Like I could run laps around you, right? Like in multiple different aspects. For me, there was a lack of respect there too, but I think there's something that's kind of universal. But now the new generation is kind of beholden to something that I think is a little bit more insidious, which is this pattern, this pattern of training your brain to behave a certain way and expect certain things at a certain rate. Which is, if that doesn't explain hypnotic rhythm, I don't know what it is.
It's deeply problematic as time goes on, and I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old, right? I think one of the other really, really big problems is if people lose the capability to focus on something and then stay disciplined and focused on that one thing to create something amazing with their life, if they can't do that, then they become or they fall into the mercy of whoever can actually do that.
Yes.
Right. And if you are absolutely financially free, completely independent, you could say whatever the hell you want to say.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're not at the mercy of the government to pay your checks. You're not at the mercy of an employer to filter you so that you don't say things that they don't want you to say. We have a podcast right now, episode 1, no sponsors. We got no money coming in. We could talk about whatever the hell we want.
Yeah.
But if we did have sponsors, a lot of the times you read those agreements, like you can never say this about that. You can't say this about that. And, it's a little bit frightening because, even people our age, I mean, I'm 34 going on 35, and I know you're
34 as well?
34 going on 35. I mean, we're even falling victim to a degree of this issue of attention.
Yeah.
And then we're also curating the stuff that we push out to the world to kind of capitalize on that 2 to 3 seconds as well. Because if you don't, you're penalized for it.
Yep. And
so that's kind of what the major problem is. And it feels like we're all just kind of being indoctrinated.
Yeah.
If we get political here and we start talking about politics and we start talking about controversial figures, like there's a lot of love for Joe Rogan, but there's also a tremendous amount of hate, which is weird, right? Because Joe Rogan, in my opinion, he's just one of those guys who's always been kind of just in the middle in terms of ideologies and very much an independent thinker and just questioning everything. But because he then aligned with the right in this last election, just because he thought it was the better choice, I also believed it was the better choice. And apparently America believed it was also the better choice.
Yeah, the majority.
Yes, but if you publicly stated anything like that, you were crucified over the last 4 years. Fucking crucified. And if you spoke about anything that happened from in 2020 through 2024, and you spoke out against the left, like you're getting silenced, you're getting suppressed. I mean, if you're talking about the wars overseas in Gaza, Israel, good luck to your algorithm. Yeah. Like you're getting decimated. And without going too far off on the tangent that I'm already on, okay?
Go off. Take us through the woods.
Take us through the woods, man. It's deeply, deeply concerning, which is why we created the show, right? Yeah. But without me veering too far off, I know we were talking about initially of when we would kind of take off a mask or put on a mask to kind of fit into the mold.
Yeah.
And there's a story that I never realized that this is what happened to me until I look back at it when I was 26 years old, and my coach actually started taking me through like almost a therapeutic experience. And I didn't understand why I was feeling the feelings that I was feeling. But he was like, "Well, what's your like first memory?" I'm like, a weird question. I'm like, I don't know. He's like, well, what's the memory that really pops in your head when you think about like your earliest years? Dude, the first memory, like I remember small things like when we did like paint and stuff like that when I was 5 or 6, but like my first distinct, vivid memory, I was 9 years old. 9. And it was when I performed at a talent show. And is the very first time in my entire life that I've ever actually like spoke in front of an audience, sang in front of an audience, anything. And I remember I'm 9 years old. We're at this talent show back in San Francisco, and I remember when I walk up to the microphone, I've never sang in front of an audience, and I'm desperately looking for my parents. I'm like, looking for them. Can't find them in the audience. I knew they were there, but I couldn't find them to kind of give me that comfort. And then the song cues, and what I was singing was "What a Wonderful World" by Louis Armstrong.
Oh wow! Did you do the voice?
I did the voice. Because I didn't know. I was 9. I didn't know that I was supposed to sing it in my voice.
Yeah.
So picture Will, 9 years old, right? What a wonderful world. The whole song, right? And when I'm done, it was silence in the room. But when I was done, I got a standing ovation. Like everybody stood up clapping. People were laughing. I thought they were cheering for me. I'm sure they were to some degree. Like, look at this guy. Good for him.
Yeah.
But not realizing like, oh, like you're not supposed to do that. And didn't win, didn't place, nothing like that. But I remember feeling so alive. And I'm sitting in the back seat of my parents' car and we're driving home. And my mom's sitting in the passenger seat and she turns around and she looks at me and I have this big ass smile on my face. And I don't know if you know anything about Asian culture or not. But if, you're not first, you're last.
Yeah.
And I got this huge smile and she turns to me and she goes, oh, like, what are you smiling about, honey? And I was like, well, I feel so happy. Like, I just can't wait to do this for the rest of my life. Because that experience taught me I'm a great fucking singer.
Yeah.
Everybody's cheering for me. This is what I want to do. And with all the love in my mom's heart, which she loves me tremendously, she says, oh, that's great, honey, but why don't you do something just a little bit more realistic? And little 9-year-old me, at that point in time, that was the first time that I realized I had to change who I was to receive love. From the person that's supposed to love me unconditionally. And let me say this again. I know my mom loves me tremendously. She was trying to protect me.
Yeah.
Was all that was happening. I'm sure I'd probably say something similar to my son if I witnessed the catastrophe that I just witnessed.
Yeah.
But, it leads you then to start thinking and start questioning, like, okay, if I started putting these masks on at 9 years old, what other masks am I wearing? How else has this impacted? And I started thinking, again, I was 26 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I started thinking, like, man, in my professional life, I would put on a mask. I'd go to a networking event and try to present myself to be more presentable than who I actually was.
Yeah.
When I started dating in my intimate life, I would pretend to be something better than what I actually was. And I think for the most part, that's what most people do, right?
Yeah.
They try to put their best foot forward, their best version of themselves forward, which rightfully so you should do. But have you ever found yourself skewing the truth?
A little too much?
A little too much?
Oh, yeah.
And, it goes back to like you start having these thoughts of imposter syndrome and things of that nature. And it's because, you kind of are operating a little bit as an imposter. But that feeling also never goes away, I don't think.
No, I don't think so either.
I think as you start leveling up, there's also a kind of a level off where the same circle of friends that you're with, they're not going to fit in your circle, or you're going to feel like you don't fit in their circle anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I used to have friends when I was 20, 21. I mean, you tell me, you probably had groups of friends who were always out partying and doing all these things. Then we started pulling away from them. They're like, oh, what are you doing? What are you doing tonight? Oh, yeah, I'm just going to stay home. I'm going to sleep early. I'm going to read this book.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you got nothing going on, bro. Let's go party. It's like, it's like, oh, okay, no worries. The first time they show support.
Yeah.
Second time, third time. Oh, what are you doing? You're just going to read another book?
Yeah, they started tearing you down a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a shame,
Yeah.
But it's the reality of it.
What they do sometimes unknowingly is now they're presented with this almost like mirror where you connected deeply because you had this appreciation for the same thing, right? For me, it was Blink 182 and Simple Plan and Linkin Park or whatever. And we appreciate these bands and what they stand and all the lyrics and the songs and how they make us feel. It's like, yeah, we feel seen. They're singing about our struggle. And then at some point, they feel like you're leaving
Hmm.
because you were together in this thing, right? You and me together against the world doing this thing. And now they feel like you are no longer agreeing with what he loves. Because in essence, you are no longer agreeing with what he loves. So not only are you rejecting the path, you're rejecting him or her too.
Hmm.
So now they have one or two choices: fight or flight. That's all the choices that we have. So they're either going to fight with you, tell you like, "What are you going to do that?" Like they'll start kind of tearing you down or guilt tripping you in a way so that they don't you don't end up leaving them, or they're just they sip into the shrubbery like Homer Simpson. They just kind of disappear off your life because they're hurt at the same rate, but they just don't know what to do about it. So they just kind of like, ice you. They don't talk to you. Sometimes they even start making shit up about you because they're that hurt, right? Sometimes they do that. But the real ones, right? The real ones that are going through that same thing with you, whether they go through it with you at the same time or they go through their own thing at their own time, they almost always find a way to come back and reconnect with you and then touch on that. Make sure that they bring it up so they could be like, hey, listen, I remember when we went through this thing, when we did this, I just want to apologize, or I want you to know, like, I didn't feel any sort of way, like if I hurt you or something like that. Most people that go through that same path, even if they go through it later on, they'll find a way to say, I feel like this is something that I do with everybody, but like I don't really expect some people to do. But when I do see it from somebody else that was in my life and they come at me with that same energy of like, hey, at some point we connected and we're both energies going through life, experiencing each other right now. At that point, at that moment in time, we had something that was kind of special and it's encapsulated in these memories. I just don't want how it ended to kind of taint that. Whenever that happens and when I see it or whenever I have the opportunity to do it with someone else in my past, dude, something beautiful happens where now all of a sudden these two evolved beings can take accountability and can take responsibility for the good and the bad that they did for each other. And now something new kind of is born from it. Then this new hybrid path. And it's nuts. It's insane. And I think most people might be missing out on that if they let pride or ego get in the way of healing.
Hmm.
And I think most people need a little bit of that with their own family, with their old friend group. Because what you're saying, like I see every single version of myself. And whenever I see every single version of myself from the past, every single cycle that I went on, there's a friend group attached to that. And it's almost like its own specific tribe.
I want to interview your emo friends.
Oh my God. They would tell you some horrific shit about me. They would.
Depends on what I consider horrific.
That's true. Maybe you'd be like, oh, hell yeah.
Oh, that's funny, man.
Yeah.
That's good. That's so good. Because I think whenever you go through an ascension and as you start to grow, you start to evolve, you start to level up, there's always a lonely phase that every person kind of grows through, where that same circle is not the same circle. And you're in a phase where you haven't started achieving at the level that you're going to. So you don't fit in with the new circle of friends yet. But you're also not, I don't want to say down here, but let's just call it what it is. You're not down here thinking of these low-level thoughts, seeking hedonism, seeking all those different things, the instant pleasures, as opposed to pursuing what you really want. So you're kind of right here, but the new circle that you really want to be with is right here. And it's just lonely. And every person has to go through it. And so what happens to a lot of people when they start getting lonely and they lack the independent thought, they have no guidance to think for themselves, or like, well, just stick with it, build up that fortitude, that mental fortitude to continue pushing. They look for comfort. And usually that comfort leads them where?
Right back to
the circle that you're trying to leave. And so I think that's why it's also so crucial, like, to make sure the information that you're taking in is good information, like garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
Get around people who are on the same path or are already where you want to be. Just get around them as much as possible. I heard something the other day. I saw some statistic that said something to the effect of, if you're around somebody who is wildly successful or a lot more successful, then you're 30% more likely to, 20% more likely to. But if you're around somebody who's negative, pessimistic, and moving in the wrong direction, it's more than 30% more likely that you're going to fail. So there is movement in the right direction by being around the positive, the right people.
Yeah.
But the pull in the negative direction is a lot stronger than the pull in the positive. And so make sure that you're around the right people, consuming the right information, and in the same time constantly thinking for yourself so that you can't be influenced by things that you know do not serve you.
Yeah. Dude, that's the universal truth right there. Like that's the main struggle that most people have, because a lot of times, and the Bible talks about this, right? Like there's stages between life and death and rebirth. There's this limbo of sorts. And if you kind of extrapolate that to just being alive, like being a person that's going through things, you can also think about all these different cycles, all these different personalities that you've inhabited as a death and rebirth of sorts, right? Like every so often you're going to be born, you're going to become somebody, and then you're going to die as that somebody. And then you're going to be reborn as something else. And that could also liken to this cycle, this hypnotic rhythm of sorts. But one of the main things that the Bible talks about is like in that limbo, you are alone. Essentially, it's a negative space of just nothingness. And you're just pure consciousness, and you're there experiencing yourself only. When you have a tendency to run away from that, right? Like if you're a person that's not comfortable in their own skin, if you're someone that's always looking for the noise, always have a TV on, always need to be scrolling, you cannot really sit because you start getting impatient. Typically, those are symptoms of a problem with yourself. You haven't truly accepted every good and honestly bad thing that you've ever done. That you run away from yourself and you look for other things. But what life has taught both of us is that when you go through that life, that death and rebirth process, you're going to go through that limbo when your old group dies and your new group is starting to emerge. That limbo, that moment where you need all the fortitude and all the discipline in the world to stay the course. I think that's what 75 Hard did for me when I completed it. It allowed me to be on my own, alone, suffering every single day, because no one's doing it with you. It's you versus you every single day. And it's a crash course on what are you going to do the next time you go through limbo? How are you going to behave? And the moment that you realize like, oh, I have everything in my power to create the frequency that I need right now in limbo so that I can propel myself to the next level, because you stay in limbo as long as you want. That's the reality of the situation. You could choose to stay there and waste all your time, or you could just make that split level decision and be like, all right, I'm going to make the choice. I'm going to do it. And the moment you start doing it, it's almost like that engine starts going, that momentum starts kicking off, and then that new arc just reveals itself, which is crazy.
Good, man.
Mm-hmm.
Man, limbo. You said you versus you, which I think is so interesting. Because when you talk about the concept of you versus you, you have people who I know who've done 75 Hard, right? And then you know people who have actually done 75 Hard.
Yeah.
Right. And you can tell just by the language that they use, typically is one of the first tells. But also when you see them meet adversity, kind of like how they tackle it, right? Because I know people who did 75 Hard and their outdoor workout every day was just a walk.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yep.
Are you really pushing yourself? Because the concept of 75 Hard was to fucking push yourself, to fully exert yourself, just to see. You kind of got a limit test to see what you're actually capable of.
What you're made of, yeah.
Yeah, but you won't know if you're always kind of just taking the easier path and just checking the box just to check the box.
Yeah.
Because I know when I did 75 Hard, dude, my knees were fucked. Like, within a week, my knees were not good. And then a lot of the internal dialogue was like, oh, like almost every day. Like, you deserve a break. Like, take it. And like that, those thoughts never went away. So you have to kind of condition yourself where the dialogue changes in terms of not when the comfort tries to kick in, because that shit it's always there. It always creeps in. And, when your life is destroyed, you think about the lowest times in your life, it was never like that one cataclysmic event.
Yeah.
It was always just choosing this small comfort right now, this one time. If you're gaining weight and you're not losing weight, you don't understand why you're gaining weight. It's those small errors in judgment just repeated over time, day after day, year after year. And then before you know it, you're obese and you're like, what the fuck happened? Yeah. I used to be in great shape. In high school, I was an athlete. You know any of those guys?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, well, what happened? Like, when your metabolism slows down, are you making those shifts? Are you making those adjustments? Or are you still making the same decisions that you never felt the pain of it back then? But as you start to evolve, your body starts changing. You have to start making those adjustments. And so without beating a dead horse here, tell me, man, what's one thought or one belief that you had 5 years ago that you believe to be true that you no longer believe today?
The one that sticks out the most, because I was thinking about this, is I honestly, truly thought that the moment that you achieved something, you're going to be happy. I really did. I thought, if I get this, I have a desire. I'm like, oh, I want that. If I get that, I'm going to be happy. And I already came head to head with that concept when I was a kid. Because one of the biggest things that I wanted when I was a kid was a PlayStation. I grew up, I might have as well grown up a monk, because my parents were so deep down the path of spirituality that as a kid, I was in monasteries and ashrams, and we were eating right. We were eating vegan. We were eating for the mind so that we could, modulate our thoughts much better. And we were meditating. Dude, it legitimately felt like I was a little monk. So the moment that life started going into this hybrid thing where I was still going to school and meeting new people and getting more introduced into the world, or Maya as it's considered in Eastern mysticism, I started really liking the taste of the world. I was like, oh, there's a lot of things here. There's a lot of things that are starting to pop up in my head and things I want.
Insert emo Edelio.
Oh, dude, big time. So a lot of things that started to pop up into my life were things that I was deprived of growing up. I was very lucky and fortunate to have somebody in my life, like my parents, who just poured into me spiritually, but I didn't really have balance, if that makes sense. Like, I think in life, I know for a fact, you need to have, God says you need to grab the world with one hand and God with the other. And that's the balance. You need to understand that you can't do one without the other. And there's cohesive symbiosis between the two. I didn't really have that because there was a huge emphasis on the spiritual. So growing up, I was like, all right, let me get into these things. Let me start getting more acquainted with like video games and things like that. And I would always see my friends playing video games, and the experience of going to a friend's house, playing a video game with them, even if you didn't get to, control the thing, you were just there and everybody's cheering the thing and the achievement. Like, the way that felt for me, I was just like, oh, I've never experienced this in my highest points of nirvana meditating. Let me go deeper down this rabbit hole. And forever, I would beg my parents, please, I want a PlayStation, like anything. Like, I'll do anything you want me to do. I'll try my hardest to be, whatever you want. I'll do anything. And they never really budged for years. They didn't budge until I was 11, 10, 11. And my cousin comes to visit us. She would always come to visit us over the summer, and she would stay over the summer. And this summer, she brought her PlayStation. And Brother, when I tell you that was the most fun I've ever had in my life that I remember as a young person. It was just a summer of like playing video games, having fun. My brothers were all there. And the moment that summer was over and that thing was gone, I was like, okay, I need to sit you guys both down and let you understand, like, if I don't get this, I don't know what's gonna happen to me. I need this. I really needed to like drill it through their heads. Which, in hindsight, who the fuck did I think I was? But they ended up budging because my aunt was also like, "What's the worst that could happen?" Little did they know.
This is PlayStation 1?
PlayStation 1, the square.
Oh, I know the PlayStation 1.
With the 2 buttons.
What games were you playing?
Oh my God. I was a huge FIFA nerd.
Okay.
I remember FIFA 2001. The feeling of like getting Ronaldinho, just getting those, oh my God, curving it the right way. Unmistakable, the feeling of that. But it was a lot of that, a lot of like Street Fighter. There was a Dragon Ball Z game that I liked, like fighting games and stuff like that. So I remember getting the PlayStation, and I set it up, and I was so excited. And I was just oozing with excitement. And the moment I started playing video games, I was like, it doesn't feel the same. I was expecting this emotional high, but it didn't feel the same. My brothers were still there, and my cousin wasn't there, but like my brothers were the reason why I wanted it, because I'm like, dude, we play outside and we have a fucking blast. So can you imagine if we're playing this all together? It's going to be nuts. But I had my brothers there. I was playing. We were all playing. And it just didn't feel the same. The day goes by. I turned it on the next day. It felt a little bit less. A week goes by and I'm like, I have no desire to play video. I have absolutely no desire because I expected this thing to just fill me up with such an emotional high. And when it didn't, because it wasn't the thing that was filling me up, it was the community, the thing, that the action, playing the game with everybody, having a common goal, going towards the thing, really struggling with certain levels and being like, how do we figure this out? It was that interaction that I was seeking. And I thought the video game was the one that gave me that. It wasn't. It was this communion between multiple different people with completely different experiences and expectations, finding a common goal and helping each other reach it. That was what I was looking for. I just didn't realize that that's what it was. And then, when you asked me 5 years ago, I haven't really let go of that thought until then. When 5 years ago, I was like, all right, I reached this thing. I got to this place where I was aiming. Now what? And that same thing, that same feeling I had when I was a kid came rushing back. I was like, that's how I felt when I got my PlayStation. I thought I was going to be happy. And I wasn't. If anything, I started getting depressed after I got the PlayStation because I'm like, life is meaningless.
Yeah.
So
the prize is the journey.
The price is the journey. The price is the people that you meet along the journey. The price is the service that you provide each other as you move through that journey. And hopefully, because everything does come to an end, hopefully once you get to an end, we can see them in the next journey. Do you know what I mean? Like, hopefully when this cycle closes, we can all kind of find each other in the next cycle. That's the magic. That's the whole purpose. So 5 years ago, I thought it's getting stuff, achieving goals. And now it's definitely not that. Definitely not.
Mm-hmm. Love it, man.
And the way that I approach everything is a little bit different, but a lot more fulfilling. And I know that for you is definitely going to be something very, very interesting. What was it for you 5 years ago? You believe something that you no longer believe.
So I would say for me, 5 years ago, I was in a place where business was doing incredibly well. I was in leadership for a mortgage company, and but my life was absolutely imbalanced. So at that point in time, my son was like 2 years old, going on 3, and I will never forget. I missed basically the entire first year of his life. I was there for all the major events. I was there for the birthdays. I was there on the weekends, things like that. But for the most part, I would leave before he woke up. I would come home, he'd already be in bed for the night. And the time that I had with him was basically in the middle of the night when he woke up for a feeding, if I woke up to take care of him. And, his first steps, I saw him on video. I missed all of that. And so at that point, I made some adjustments, not to mention I was also hospitalized 3 times for working too much and being overwhelmingly stressed. So at that point, I made some adjustments in my life and my own decision-making where I was going to live a more balanced life because it was what would provide me more fulfillment. But instead of living a balanced life, what I did was, instead of being absolutely imbalanced, work, I teetered all the way to the other side. And I was like, let me go be family man Will. And when my daughter was born, I didn't work for 4 months. I was just home every day. I was like, I'm not missing any of this. And I was there all the time. But what that did was it felt like it emasculated. It felt like I then stopped being who I was to try to fill some other void that was missing of being this family man, because I believed that that's who I was supposed to be. And as much as I love my daughter, and I don't regret any of that time or any of those moments, the only people I'm seeing every day is my toddler, my wife, and my newborn daughter. For 4 months, like, that'll take the killer instinct right out of you.
Yeah.
And so for me, one of the realizations that I had was all of it really coming full circle of just understanding who you are and staying true to what your essence is. So for me, like, just the way that I'm wired, I have to go out, I have to conquer, I have to win. I can still be the best father I can be in those moments with them. And I can still do my absolute best when I'm with them. But if I'm not doing this shit over here, like, I feel empty and I'm just a shadow of the man I could be if I'm doing what I need to do over here. Because if this isn't happening on this side, you're going to get a terrible, much watered down version of William Butler on the side.
Yeah.
So for me, I think it's the idea of chasing balance is a myth. And you have to, the whatever way you're wired, you have to pursue that because you need to stay true to who you are in essence. And just do your best when you're actually wherever you are, just be there.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say for me.
I agree with that, man. That's powerful shit, brother. That's powerful shit. And the balance thing too, it makes a lot of sense, like, to close up, because I know we're coming up on time. I think that, yeah, staying right down the center, that definitely is a myth, because balance to me is a healthy oscillation between order and chaos, right? Order being what you believe to be true and what you like, and chaos being everything else and all the shit that will be inevitably thrown your way. And if you're oscillating between that properly, you step away long enough, it looks like a straight path, but it's never straight. You're going from one thing to the next and really understanding how to make that dance work for you, which hopefully we can help some people get on board with this, because I think that's this whole project is going to open up a whole bunch of different things for people that maybe they knew before and they can strengthen it, or maybe they didn't know before. And these are concepts that they might be hearing for the first time. And if that's you, come back next week, because we got some good shit for you.
Here you go. Love it.
All right, let's close it up with that. Any closing thoughts that you have before we wrap up?
I mean, closing thoughts for episode 1, I would say is, what is a thought that you have right now that maybe you don't believe 100%, and question it. Dive in a little bit deeper. Ask a little bit more questions, even if they're uncomfortable, because they say the truth is uncomfortable, but ultimately it'll set you free.
Yes, sir. Amen to that. All right, brother. I'll see you next time.
Because the most dangerous thing to be in the world today is an independent thinker.
There's a resonance with that line of thinking. Very similar arc where they give up on a lot of things that they believe in so they can fit in.
Just having a couple more bucks in your bank account doesn't make you victorious. Like, everything is mindset. If you don't have the mindset, you're not going to be successful in anything in your life.
Unless you just change your energy and start looking from a different perspective. You have to be able to think greater than you feel. You getting to that point of, I've been putting in the work, I deserve more than the results I'm getting. You're sending out a different electromagnetic signature. And
back in 2019, I was looking for some answers because I was broke, I was depressed, I was full of anxiety, I wasn't loving what I was doing in life. Funny enough, actually, before I went into this bookstore, I had asked to find the one book that could change my life. So with that intention, I walked through that bookstore and then I found that book. It taught me how I am actually not a victim of life's circumstances, how I actually created the mess that I was in.
Today's the day you become the best version of yourself, because today is truly the first day of the rest of your life. Who cares about yesterday, okay? Maybe you were a knucklehead. Maybe you made some galactically stupid mistakes yesterday. Today's the day where you become a good dude.